But there's one very newsworthy series of emails, and they stuck out. They showed that as Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden tailored American foreign policy, our foreign policy, which Joe Biden does not own, in order to help his son's business interests. Biden intervened aggressively in the internal affairs of another sovereign nation, Ukraine, and his son got paid for that. By any measure, that is a real story. There's no spinning it. That's a story. But then, very quickly, something bigger than that happened, something far more dangerous to our country than anything the New York Post found on Hunter Biden's laptop. Here's what happened. The most powerful people in the world aligned to censor the news, to keep it from the population of the United States. Twitter prevented its users from sharing the story. So did Facebook. When Americans searched Google to read the New York Post story, many couldn't find it. So within hours, the promise of a free press, that's the basis of American democracy and has been for 250 years, just disappeared. One minute, we were America. The next minute, we were China. Horrifying. And perhaps most horrifying of all, our news media applauded it. The self-described guardians of the First Amendment cheered the destruction of the First Amendment. The New York Times actually ran an op-ed attacking the idea of free speech. Ideas that threaten the ruling class must be squelched, put down. That's their position. Every power center in America vehemently agreed with that. And most ominous of all, the U.S. intelligence community, the secretive federal agencies that have nearly unlimited power, joined in. Those agencies colluded with the news media to hide information from the American public weeks before a presidential election. On Saturday, USA Today kicked off the effort by publishing one of the most dishonest newspaper stories ever to run in this country. Federal authorities are investigating, the paper declared, whether the story about Hunter Biden's laptop was, quote, part of a smoke bomb of disinformation pushed by Russia. The Russians did it. That was the point of the piece. In fact, it was the only point of the piece. The newspaper never bothered to assess whether the core story was true. Are the facts right? And that used to be the very first and most important question in journalism. Is the allegation true? Everything else flows from that. But USA Today didn't even ask that question. Nor did the newspaper explain how this Russian plot might have worked in practical terms. The computer repair shop owner in Wilmington, for example, he must have been in on it. He had physical possession of the laptop. So was this seemingly mild-mannered Mac repairman yet another one of Vladimir Putin's hand-picked sleeper agents? Had he been lying in wait in a Delaware strip mall for decades, preparing for just this moment? USA Today didn't tell us. They didn't need to tell us because the rest of the media understood instantly what to do. FBI probed if purported Hunter Biden emails are a Russian plot, declared Bloomberg News. PBS, which you pay for, it's publicly funded, cited a, quote, senior former intelligence official, whose salary you also paid, to claim that Rudy Giuliani was likely channeling Russian disinformation. So the former mayor of New York is working for Vladimir Putin, too. That's how vast this conspiracy was. Reporters in Washington and New York frantically called their many sources in the permanent national security state for more details. From his perch on Twitter, desiccated neocon ghoul David Frum cheered them on. Vast experience lying in the run-up to the Iraq War, he put those talents to use. In this frenzy to find this new batch of Russian spies, the media did miss a few obvious leads. For example, two people reporters forgot to call were Joe and Hunter Biden. Presumably the Bidens could have confirmed whether or not the famous laptop was real, and that would have ended the speculation. It would have informed the rest of us. But somehow no one thought to do that. Finally, last Friday night, one reporter, Bo Erickson of CBS, blurted out the question to Joe Biden himself. And here's what happened next.
I know you'd ask it. I have no response. It's another smear campaign. It's right up your alley. They're the questions you always ask.
Oh, it's a smear campaign right up your alley. I have no response, said Joe Biden. Biden didn't deny the story because he knows that laptop from the Delaware repair shop did in fact belong to his son, Hunter. And we know it too. We confirmed that conclusively last week. Everything we have learned since then, and there has been a lot that we've learned since then, bolsters that conclusion. The laptop in question belonged to our Hunter Biden, period. It is not a Russian fabrication. So Bo Erickson of CBS asked a legitimate question. And for that very reason, within minutes, Democratic operatives, including many in the media, landed on him. The point of attacking a man who appears to be a fairly liberal CBS reporter was to send a message to the rest of the press corps. Shut up and obey the narrative, or else. According to Greg Sargent of the Washington Post, quote, the real problem here is this is a useless question from a journalistic perspective. Large parts of the story are invented, unconfirmed, highly dubious. What is learned by placing the work of denying them on Biden, end quote. Notice Greg Sargent doesn't explain what parts are unconfirmed or false. No part of this story, no email has been shown to be false. They're not even claiming it's false. Doesn't matter. Another Democratic operative called John Favreau called the the New York Post story Russian disinformation and concluded Biden was too nice. Michael McFaul, he now works at Stanford, he used to work in the Obama administration for 5 years, attacked Bo Erickson for, quote, discussing disinformation. You're not even allowed to discuss it. And the actor of Alec Baldwin wrote this, quote, take the beat down, learn from it, and move on. What is this? It's happening in concert all at one time. What you're watching is the most powerful people in America aligning as one to hide legitimate information from the public. This is not the way our country used to operate. Are you terrified yet? You should be terrified because it worked. That's why they do it, because it works. Here are the questions reporters are asking Joe Biden now.
All right.
We got him. See, look.
Happy milkshake. We got one vanilla, one chocolate, but I wanted to get what we call black and white, but we're going to move it. In other words, we're going to split it.
What flavor did you get? That was the question. This is a man who has relatively few opportunities to speak to the press, and when they get a chance, they ask, what flavor did you get? And if you don't want to end up like Bo Erickson of CBS, that's the kind of question you'd better ask the Democratic nominee for president with fewer than 2 weeks to go until Election Day. So after Joe Biden gave his answer, one vanilla, one chocolate, in case you missed the answer, another reporter had a follow-up. Listen to how that went.
And one more question, the FBI is reporting help.
So the second the words FBI emerge, Joe Biden walks away. And yet that's not even the worst part of the clip you just saw. The worst part is the other journalists. They burst out laughing before they even hear the rest of the question. Asking about the FBI was unapproved. You can't talk about that, so the journalists laughed it down. That is state media protecting the powerful. No one thought to ask Biden why, if the laptop is a Russian invention, there's a letter from Hunter Biden's lawyer asking for the laptop back. Is he part of the conspiracy too? We don't know, and we're not going to learn, because Joe Biden has now gone into hiding until Thursday's debate. And that means the media can continue to collude unimpeded with our spy agencies to lie to you. It's the Russians, because Russia, and repeat after us as we say this until you reflexively believe it, because Russia is the greatest threat we face.
We've got a person named Donald Trump who has been warned that he is receiving and is now regurgitating, repeating, and disseminating disinformation that he knows to be fabricated and supplied by a foreign intelligence service. And despite the warning, he's still doing it.
You have said this entire thing is so obviously a Russian plot. It is to me, and I was never even an ambassador to the Russian Federation. Tell me why it's so obviously a Russian plot to you.
Rudy, basically functioning as a Russian asset by pushing Russian disinformation.
CNN reported on Friday that U.S. authorities are seeing if those emails we just talked about are connected to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort. Huh.
You know, at some point, you got to be honest and say, who cares what's on Hunter Biden's laptop? What you just saw is the real threat. The powerful, the most powerful in our country colluding to dismiss legitimate questions using a fake threat of Russian disinformation. That's scary.